What's up, bro?
Aye.
There's not a rule that you have to use the 3 subs.
He's the What's up, bro?
Aye.
Hello, everybody.
What's up, bro?
Aye.
There's not a rule that you have to use the 3 subs.
He's the best left back in Canada.
Today's gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should somehow realize what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but you never really had a doubt. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. And all the roads we have to walk are winding, and all the lights that lead us there are blinding. There are many things that I would like to say to you, but I don't know how. Because maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me.
The third sub live show. I'm your co-host, Alexander Gangiruzik, joined as always by Sammy Rowan. This is the third sub pregame show presented by Macey Sports. It's going to be a jam-packed hour. Always a blast to chat with you all here for this hour. And Sam, I mean, how's it going this week? We chatted, 2 days ago with the episode 93 of the podcast. So hopefully you guys got a chance to listen to that. But aside from that, excited. Big game today.
Yeah, fantastic intro by Ben as always. Just gets me psyched for every match. I don't know why this is the first thing I'm going to off the hop, but we seem to see that Christian Dahomey dancing video a lot. And I don't know, Alex, if you saw the Yusuf Daha clip, and then also the video of Daber and Dahomey dancing again. And for the second time in one of those Dahomey dancing clips, you've got Michael Baldissimo in the background, just looking like dead inside, staring at the wall. If at some point we get to talk to Baldy, I want to know what's going on there, what's going through his head, because poor Baldy just seems like he's not enjoying it. I don't know what it is, if he's seen a ghost, if he left the oven on at home, but I just found that funny. It's a very random place to start the show, but welcome everyone. Yeah. Vancouver Whitecaps versus Minnesota United. I mean, in one sense, a prime opportunity for the Whitecaps to build on some positive momentum. In another sense, do they slip on the banana peel? Is this a trap game? I think from everything I've watched, Minnesota's sneakily a better team than they've let on so far. But can they right the ship? And obviously the Whitecaps don't want to be that team that lets them back into things. But tonight's going to be a big test either way.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to start with Michael Baldissimo. You have to remember, he's just a progressive pass robot sometimes, and that's okay. He lets his personality do the talking on the field, and that's why we like Michael Baldissimo. He's a no-nonsense character. He seems like a fun guy to have in the locker room, and sometimes his singular focus is on progressing the ball through midfield. And you know what? There's not enough guys on the Whitecaps that can do that. But as for this Minnesota game, the Whitecaps are going to need him in some form or another to play through this Minnesota team. It's tough to gauge how good Minnesota is because they just got such weird holes. Like, they got an outstanding midfield unit. They got, usually they have one of the better goalkeeping tandems in MLS. Dane Sinclair hasn't really been at his best, and you wonder if this could be a game for that if they stick with them. If not, Tyler Miller is a very good option to have in relief. Pretty much a number 1A, 1B situation. They got, that's it. The midfield is great, but then up front, they're still missing their number 9, the guy they wanted to bring in. And at the back, they're missing Ikopara. So it's kind of paper, makeshift paper thin defense, so to speak. So it just makes them such a weird team because they're so strong in some areas and so weak in others. And I think this start might be indicative of those holes. Okay, they can control parts of games due to their midfield, but then they lose the ball and it's just kind of helter-skelter at the back right now. And I just wonder if that's playing a role in their slow start.
Well, yeah, I guess let's just get right into things by kind of addressing the elephant in the room, being the poor start from Minnesota and their struggling defensive record. I mean, that's what everyone in MLS is talking about. I know that I was browsing around on Minnesota United Reddit, and there's a lot of Heath out on there, but there's also a lot of, hey, there's a couple guys defensively that have been a real weak point so far. And so you look at the fullback play, you look at the goalkeeping from Dane St. Clair. I think we're all big fans, but it hasn't worked out the way it was kind of Thomas Osal-esque. He had a historically good run at the end of last year, and it's just been a bit of a sophomore slump, a return back to earth, whatever it might be. They're struggling so far, but I don't think that allowing 10 goals through 4 matches is necessarily indicative of what this team is overall. And Alex, I'm going to kind of walk you through. I went and watched back all the goals that Minnesota conceded so far this year. I mean, it's only 10, so it's not that impressive. But I broke it down in terms of, okay, what caused the goal to be scored? What was the root of this? And how much was Minnesota just really to blame? What were the factors that led to it? It basically breaks down like this. 2 goals from what I would essentially categorize as low danger chances. You had the João Plata screamer from Seattle. That's just like, okay, it's a moment of individual brilliance. Nothing you can do about that. You had, I think it was Acosta for Colorado. Same thing. It was a volley from outside the box. Yeah, it was the second phase of a corner kick. Like they weren't able to clear it away. Maybe you place some blame there. But it's a volley from outside the box. I don't think you're too worried about that. Then you had 3 individual errors, coupled by the fullbacks, one by Dane St. Clair just not able to secure the ball. So there's 5 out of your 10 goals conceded in over 4 matches. 3 from individual errors you're hoping to kind of close down on or get rid of. You're obviously not going to be error-free, but you can get rid of most of those. And then, you're going to have some screamers scored against you throughout the year, but I think that goes to show that there's half of the goals conceded so far this year from, I wouldn't say necessarily just, not the kind of defensive, not like fundamental defensive cracks, more either good play by the opponents or sloppy individual moments that can hopefully be cleaned up.
It's a good point. No, it's a good point that you've gone back and watched the goals. And I mean, I guess in a sense that could be applied to most teams, just looking at some of the goals they've conceded. For sure. So, if we're going to cherry pick the Whitecaps, for example, they've only conceded 3 and 4. And I mean, one went off Michael Baldissimo's head right to Jonathan Osorio. So I guess you could always cherry pick that, but you do bring up a point, something like individual errors. Over time, those tend to regress to the mean. So I guess it's fair to say teams like the Whitecaps shouldn't expect errors from.
I'm not trying to say that Minnesota is all of a sudden going to be a top 5 defensive team in MLS. It's just, is it so historically poor? Is it, unfixable? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of pretty easy ways that Minnesota can clean things up. And as we're seeing there, bottom 3rd in a lot of these statistical categories. But really, when I dove through the numbers, part of the reason I did this whole investigation was because I couldn't find any one specific stat or area where they were just getting shelled. The Whitecaps at times, like you looked at possession numbers from last year and you're like, oh my God, this is horrific, right? But Minnesota defensively, it didn't look like that. They were kind of somewhere between middle and bottom 3rd in a lot of significant categories. And so I had to go take a look. Okay, why have they been struggling so much? And I think it's just a combination of, if I look at the other goals against, a lot of them were kind of in transitional play. And that's where you come back to the fullbacks, maybe either getting overcommitted or being out of position. And then you had the one set piece goal, which, I mean, is going to happen. You're going to concede from set pieces from time to time. So really, they can lock down the individual errors and, just get a little more organized in transition. I think there's a good chance that they maybe aren't a great defensive team, but can at least, get their stuff in order. And the Vancouver Whitecaps haven't created a whole lot of chances from open play so far. So maybe Wednesday night, it's a good time to get back on a roll defensively if you're a Loons fan.
I guess there's still a lot to unpack from before. I mean, again, to return to the point of individual errors, I think, those will be weeded out. But again, I do see some frailties for there to be exposed if you're the Whitecaps, like Chase Gaspar at left back. Roman Metnier sounds like he's been struggling with fitness, hasn't really been his best. A center back pairing of Jukka Raitala and Michael Boxall. I'm not sure if that's necessarily one of the most intimidating center back pairings in MLS. So I do wonder, yes, maybe Minnesota isn't as bad as they've looked, but I just don't see much of a ceiling for an improvement. So it's hard to say they're a bottom team. I don't think that's fair to say they're a bottom team, but I still think that there's just, there's enough concerns for there to be still worries, for there to still be problems if the Whitecaps present it. And we have to remember that the Whitecaps, they aren't they aren't a particularly dangerous team from open play. As we mentioned, maybe on set pieces against a backline like that, they can do a bit of damage. Maybe we'll see. But it's certainly, I just see it's not like, say, a Cincinnati where you look at that team like, okay, they've been bad for 3 years now. They've been trying all sorts of things. It doesn't work. I mean, Minnesota's kept a lot of these same defenders for the last 2-3 years. So again, things will get better, but I just don't see how much better they can really, after it gets up a bit. I see a middling defense there. And I think, to be fair, Minnesota's strength last year was their offense. It was guys like Reynoso, guys like Ludd playing out of his skin, nearly getting a 10-goal, 10-assist season. Kevin Molino, I think he had like 10 goals, 9 assists or something last year. That's the kind of team Minnesota is. They're the team that wins games 3-2, 4-3 anyway. So, yes, their defense has been terrible really to start the year, but I just don't think that's going to, not much is going to change, and I don't think that's their style of play. So I don't think that should, the Whitecaps shouldn't change their approach, but we're going to expect, this or that from Minnesota. I mean, yes, they'll probably try to play a little more defensive to tighten up. That's just a natural coach's reaction, but I still think there's goals for the Whitecaps to be had. But I think if you're the Whitecaps, the worry is more, okay, keeping balls out of your net against, if assuming a Reynoso plays, a Load, some of these guys play, okay, can you keep the balls out of their net? And okay, open play. We'll talk about that in a bit, and also find an open play goal. But it's not really, Minnesota's defense isn't something at the front of my mind right now, let's say.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting because that's been the real talking point, at least locally for Minnesota fans. And so I wanted to bring it up right off the hop. And because it kind of, as you said, balances nicely with the Vancouver Whitecaps from open play and whether or not this is an area of concern. You speak with Mark Dos Santos, you hear from him midweek, he's definitely toting we created set pieces from open play and kind of looking at it that way. But Alex, I'm curious for your thoughts in terms of, say, for example, if the Whitecaps get shut out tonight, or if the Whitecaps score a goal from another set piece and they can't get on the board from open play, are you starting to become ever more concerned about the lack of creation?
I hit the panic button like 2 games ago. I've been
there's your answer then.
I've been concerned for a while now. And I mean, as Ben's brought up here, they're best in the league off set pieces. That's not a bad thing. The more you worry teams off set pieces, the more you can do more from open play, because teams are going to be scared to kick the ball out. They're going to be scared to try and foul you and leave you a little more space. So, that is one thing. Can they get Lucas Cavallini going? It's certainly a concern, because the more we talk about open play, that's profiting guys like Andy Rose right now, Ranko Veselinovic, Christian Dahome is turning into some, heading monster lately for some reason. But the open play goals, you need guys like Diber Caicedo, Lucas Cavallini, some of those other guys, Kyle Alexandre, guys to get going in open play and get things happening for the Whitecaps, because it's just not working for them right now in open play. And it hurts your team, because you're not going to win games only by scoring off of set pieces. They're not necessarily sustainable enough to fully rely on as an avenue for scoring. It's just open play scoring is more sustainable. You can control which phases of play you get into. It just makes so much more sense. So yes, I am worried. I've hit the panic button, and for me, it's going to be, it depends on how they defend today. If they stick in a similar 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1 with a double pivot and they defend well but can't score, that's where you start to, okay, it's time to get creative. At this point, if you defend well, keep the double pivot, keep the back four, start messing with things in front. If you need to try a 4-3-1-2 in front, I know people are going to go
Alex, can I interrupt you to tell you that there's only been one change to the lineup from the weekend?
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. That's just shocking to say the least. And I mean, the one change, for those wondering, is Bruno Gaspar. At least it's Bruno Gaspar, and it's nice to see. But Derek Cornelius, Theo Bair, Leonard Owusu, don't know what some of those guys need to get a start. Good to see Michael Baldisimo back. But anyways, returning to my point of open play goals, just try new things. I know Mark DeSanto is going to get ripped for switching up from the 4-4-2, but at a certain point, how many people want to watch the Whitecaps play for 34 games and not score from open play? The reason he went to the 4-4-2 was to defend better. Okay, he's defending better. You can still defend well with the double pivot and try other things like a 4-3-1-2, like a 4-2-3-1 with proper wingers, or just thinking off the board. Just there's so many other formations. So for me, the panic button has to be hit, and then you're starting to come to the time where you might have to start getting creative with some of the solutions you offer up.
Well, yeah, you talk about creative solutions. This lineup is definitely not a creative solution. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. We won't know until we see it in practice on the pitch. But interesting that with 3 matches in 8 days, you're running it straight back, basically just swapping Jake Nerwinski for Bruno Gaspar. I mean, after the way Lucas Cavallini looked on the weekend, how tired he seemed in the second half. Guys like Caicedo that are just getting integrated into the squad. I'm really surprised that I feel like this has to mean changes are coming for Sporting Kansas City on Sunday, but maybe not at this rate. Leo Owusu, I wonder what the fitness is like there. Ryan Raposo, I think, maybe deserve to get a shout. It's going to be interesting for sure. Russell Tybert on the left in some ways is actually part of this lineup that I don't mind, because it really gets Gutierrez activated and involved. But I mean, we might as well, as we kind of talk about this lineup, continue to talk a bit about the open play struggles. Digging through some of the stats, it feels like the consistent theme is that the Whitecaps have actually improved a lot this year in terms of possessing the ball and in terms of even progressing it up the pitch. Last year they were pretty woeful in terms of getting it into the attacking third. Now it feels like the issue is more when they get into the attacking third, they're out of ideas, or they can't actually create shot attempts. You look at, they've only had 23 live ball passes, so non-set pieces, that have led to shot attempts. The MLS average is 58 so far this year. So you have less than half of the MLS average. Obviously not good. Looking at some of the other stats, only 11 completed passes into the 18-yard box from open play all year. That's second last in MLS. And only 1 completed cross into the 18-yard box from open play. That's dead last in MLS, and every other team in the league has at least 4. So I feel like the Whitecaps have done a much better job getting into those advanced areas, but right now the final product is completely lacking. So it's a question of finding that instigator to really unlock that. And I think that kind of goes to show Michael Baldisimo and his effect. He's really helped get the Whitecaps into that final third, but then they have to rely on someone like David Caicedo, someone like Caio Alexandre, someone like Leo Owusu, I really think would be a prime candidate to help out there when he's back in the lineup. So it's, in some ways, the Whitecaps are dealing with the same problems as years past, but I feel like there's some subtle but important differences. And also shouting out, our last guy in the graphic, Ryan Raposo. Yes, it's an incredibly small sample size, but he has 3 shot creating actions so far this year in just 40 minutes of play. You know who else has 3 shot creating actions this year, Alex?
Give me an idea. Probably someone like Emmanuel Reynoso, isn't it?
No, someone on the Whitecaps. Someone else
Lucas
on the Whitecaps.
Cavallini.
No, Russell Tybert, who's played 339 minutes. So you're dealing with, I can't even do the math, but, infinitely more playing time and the same amount of creation in much less time. So obviously, if you looked at the per 90 stats, Raposo's off the charts, and it's because he's only played 40 minutes. But there's also, the truth is somewhere in between. Raposo certainly is capable of creating and capable of providing that little bit of incisive creation. And he's looked good so far this year. So I really hope that he'd be a guy I'd be tapping right now I really hope he comes on 60th, 65th minute and gets a good run in this one.
Well, I got a lot to get into, starting with what you said, but also the comments, guys. I see your comments. There's a lot of good stuff coming on through there, but just to talk about the open play and just the lack of changes to the lineup, because you mentioned such damning stats about lack of crossing or, getting into the final third, creating open play. Again, it just returns to this whole idea of there being a lack of creative solutions, a lack of just even something like, okay, you see a guy like Ryan Raposo doing well, try playing him up front with Lucas Cavallini, or play him on the wing and give him a due run that he deserves. Or, obviously we've got a guy like Theo Bair who will be banging the drum on week after week until he gets his turn. You're lacking a bit of solutions in open play from final third. Get a guy like, Theo Bair up there up front with Lucas Cavallini and cause some havoc. Get Dahome and Caicedo out on the wings so they're attacking the fullbacks from Minnesota, who, as we mentioned, are struggling right now. A guy like Russell Tybert, as good of a shield as he's providing to Christian Gutierrez, he isn't really threatening fullbacks or going one-on-one. Minnesota's fullbacks are struggling to deal with wingers right now. They had, a nightmare of a time dealing with guys on Colorado that the Whitecaps, the guys like Andrei Shinyanchiki and, all these guys coming at them out the wing, they struggle. Why aren't the Whitecaps trying guys like Ryan Raposo or, putting Caicedo and Dahome wider? And there's just this lack of creative solutions. And it just, maybe to jump on some of the stuff in the comments in terms of changes, it's just confusing that there's no tactical changes, adjusting to strategy, but then just the rest factor, because what's the plan here? Running guys into the ground, potentially risking injury, and playing a B team against Kansas away? You're going to get spanked against Kansas away. The thing is with Minnesota, they have the midweek game. I mean, theoretically, Kansas does have a midweek game as well, so they'd be as tired as the Whitecaps on Sunday, but the Whitecaps are going to have to travel additionally, whereas Sporting Kansas City are already at home, and they're not going to be as tired. If you're the Whitecaps, would you not rest some tired bodies now before getting, risking burnout and looking fatigued for Kansas on Sunday? I just wonder if that's going to be the case. And it's such strange game management, such strange lineup management right now. And I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me in some ways.
Yeah. I mean, Mark DeSantos it continues to be a moving target, right? Because last year it felt like the squad rotation came seemingly at random and out of left field. And sometimes we were almost shocked by the crazy rotation that would happen with little notice. And now it feels like we've gone completely the other way around. And I'm not going to gripe with the rotation so much as I'm going to gripe with what you pointed out, which was the lack of tactical adjustment. Unless I see things tonight that really look like they've changed their shape, they've changed their attacking fluidity, which very well may occur with Bruno Gaspar in the lineup, one of our 3 players to watch for the Whitecaps. Unless I see that, then I'm wondering, what has Mark DeSantos been doing all week to help improve the Whitecaps' ability to create? Unless the plan is to go into Minnesota and hope for another penalty kick or hope for another set piece and just try to keep a clean sheet. I mean, that's certainly one way you can approach things, but I don't think the way that Whitecaps fans are looking for, the way that most people expect an MLS team to play. So it's going to be interesting to track. Looking at the players to watch, I mean, Dahome and Max Crepeau coming off really, really good performances. Basically, as you said, I think pretty much perfectly on our last show, Alex, they carried the Whitecaps to victory over Montreal. So you have to just expect more of the same from Max. And And Dahomey, you have to wonder what are those Minnesota defenders going to do in an attempt to shut him down, because Minnesota has essentially gone with a very similar lineup in comparison to what they
defensive one. Actually, if you're looking, they're playing a 4-3-1-2 with 5 midfielders on the park. You got Hassani Dotson, who's usually a box-to-box guy, playing at striker. Reynoso, who's a 10. Lode, who's kind of a midfield / winger, playing as the 10. Grey Goose, Trapp, Alonso. That's a very defensive lineup, and it's interesting to see that that's the approach they're going with today.
Well, so Trapp is kind of a bit of a tweak, right? That we haven't seen a ton of so far this year. And then Dotson, they've deputized him in that winger forward position, because they're missing that Molino replacement right now, and he's looked all right so far, and I think Minnesota fans have been pretty happy with what he's shown so far. So it'll be interesting to watch him. He's kind of the guy I have circled to, I think if the Loons are going to have a good match, Dotson's going to be part of that, certainly offensively. And then, you just look at the back four, you still got that Raitala Gasper pairing on the left-hand side, which may prove to be challenging. We'll have to see what someone like Dahomey can do to expose them, because that's been a big weakness for the Loons so far.
Yeah, and I mean, Tyler Miller slots in for Dane Sinclair as kind of expected. Not much Dane Sinclair could have done through a few weeks, but maybe it's
the right move.
It's time just to give him a rest. So see what Tyler Miller can do, fired up. But Minnesota's lineup's a strange one, and I think if you're the Whitecaps, that's good. You're not going to have to deal with as much pace, as much counter-attacking threat, as much directness, and maybe that could be a good thing for the Whitecaps, because they're back four anyways. Guys like Bruno Gaspar, Ranko Veselinovic, Andy Rose, Christian Gutierrez. The fullbacks are going to be playing high. Veselinovic and Rose aren't exactly what you'd call track stars. Maybe that could play into the Whitecaps' hands, that Minnesota's going for this more possession-based, more technical approach versus a speed one, just because the Whitecaps aren't really all that well set up to handle speed. So that actually could be a bit of a blessing in disguise, so to speak, with the Whitecaps. Playing through that midfield, though, is just going to be an absolute slog, especially with no Michael Baldissimo. Kyle Alexandria is going to have his work cut out. I think it might be best to target that wide play and get Christian Dahomey and Diber Caicedo a bit isolated out versus that fullback duo, like you mentioned, that whole of Bruno Gaspar, or not Bruno, like the other Gaspar, Chase Gaspar, and and Juka Raitala, and even between Metnier and Boxall, those channels there could be very open to exploit and try to, just because playing through that midfield, I'm already seeing in my head now, it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a dogfight, having basically 3 number 6s on the field and then another number 8 and then 2 number 10s. It's just very, very pragmatic from Adrian Heath. And you know what? That actually plays so much in the Whitecaps' hands that you're almost banging your head on the wall a bit. Like, why don't you have another winger out there like a Ryan Raposo or, a Theo Bear, or one of those, or even a Leonard Owusu instead of a Russell Tybert, just to be able to break down this Loons lineup? Because frankly, from Adrian Heath, this is kind of almost a shocking lineup, because yes, his team is struggling defensively and he needs to go to the whole, let's try to save our skins a little. But seeing the Whitecaps, he's pretty much given a lineup to play against the Whitecaps that just kind of plays into their style of play and plays into their game plan defensively. That where is he going to get the goals for? Are they going to try to go for a 0-0? They're going to go for a 1-1. It's just such strange personnel decisions for me here for Adrian Heath.
I think the thing that confuses me about this lineup is Minnesota doesn't need a draw. Minnesota needs a win.
Need wins.
And this doesn't seem like we're going out to take this. It doesn't give off that. It gives a cagey 0-0 vibe is what this lineup looked like to me. And I don't understand how that's the approach from Minnesota. Now, mind you, if they can wear down Vancouver in that midfield, use those 3 number 6s, as you said, and then, get their dynamic forwards to create something on their own, then they could easily take this one 2 or 3-0, but it's a very curious approach, this one, and not what I was expecting from either team, to be honest, but that's MLS for you. That's midweek fixtures, looking at the Premier League this past week, and there've been some curious lineup decisions as well. It's something that happens, and we're just going to have to see how it pans out.
Yeah, that's it. It could look genius. I'm just seeing on paper, again, it's just such a strange approach to this game. But I mean, either way, players to watch. It doesn't change the fact that Minnesota is going to have difference makers on the park. I mean, Emmanuel Reynoso, what a fantastic playmaker. He knows how to get in between the lines and cause damage. Robin Ludd, similar vibes, similar kind of the fact that they have this fluidity up front, this ability to play in between the lines, and then having a guy like Jan Gregus in behind them, feeding them the ball. There's danger there. I don't know if this danger is going to pose a threat to the Whitecaps, but certainly good players, a good team, but just such a peculiar setup. And if you're the Whitecaps, you have to be, almost licking your lips a bit, looking at some of the matchups that you have to offer. Obviously not through the midfield, but in other areas of the pitch.
Yeah, I just want to bring up, you talked about those three guys to watch, and we've all, I think most people listening, watching on here will kind of know at least some of what Reynoso, Ludd, and Grey Goose can do. But I wanted to bring up Seb's comment about not starting Ramon Abila, the number 9 that they brought in from Boca Juniors. I think that's an interesting one, because he was definitely someone I was looking forward to seeing in this match. Only played 90 minutes so far through 3 appearances. Did play 57 minutes against Austin, but really looked at his best in a substitute performance against Seattle on opening day. Had some positive play, just kind of that wily, target man striker, and has been a consistent goal scorer in South America dating back to 2015. Whether that was in Brazil for a little bit or the Argentinian league, he's put up decent numbers, both goals and assists, like pretty much every season. And I mean, we could talk a little bit if you want, Alex, about Adrien Onu and what he's going to do when he comes over. But I have to feel like that the plan for Minnesota was to have that, whether it's a striker partnership or whether it's a sole striker, you're going to have, 2 guys that are consistent goal scoring threats with a lot of experience. And I'm curious, as to, I would have thought Adrian Heath, if he was going for we're going to take all 3 points from the Whitecaps tonight, that someone like Abila would have started.
Well, I guess on that note, before I dive into all of that, we have reached the halfway point of our show. So just want to give a very important shout out to our sponsors, Macey Sports. Big shout out to them for supporting us and, helping support local soccer. Obviously a bit, important fixture of local soccer in North Van. Just want to shout them out for the giveaway. Congratulations again to Giovanni for winning the first ever Wave Kit giveaway. Great to see all the active participation in that giveaway. And if you didn't win, fear not. We have our next giveaway actually this weekend. It's very exciting. I can't wait to announce what we're giving away this time. It's going to be, it's going to be fun to see who wins this time. But again, shout out to Macey Sports. We appreciate having them on board. And it's been a blast so far through a few weeks of working with them.
Absolutely. Great job for Macey Sports to with the Wave Kit thing was a huge success. Also glad that someone who's interacted with us a lot on Twitter and been involved in the show is great to see someone like that pick up the kit, and we're looking forward to doing more. I wanted to kind of I guess let's get back to, with that said, get back to your thoughts on continuing on the lineup, continuing on maybe thoughts on both those strikers, the 2 guys they brought in the offseason, the one that's here, the one that has yet to arrive.
Where do they factor all these guys in? It's just such strange decision making, really. I just think back for me, if you're talking Loons additions, I think back to when they brought in Reynoso in the summer, I think of 2019 it was. And then for some reason, 2 months after, they brought in Thomas Chacon, the young, playmaker as a young DP, who's just never played. And I think he finally went out on loan this past offseason.
I think he's back in Uruguay on loan, I believe.
He is on loan. And then now they bring in a guy like Abila, who's a proper number 9, a dangerous number 9. And then they bring in a guy like Adrien Onu, who is also a good number 9 and a DP. It's like, do you plan playing both together? Do you plan on playing one for half the games and one for the other? Like, is it going to be a Chacon situation where one dude just kind of doesn't play, one dude kind of takes the show? Like, it's strange because on one hand, you can only respect bringing in a lot of top end talent. It's nice to have guys like, you look at your bench, like, okay, who do I start? Reynoso, Lod, Abila, Hunu, Grey Goose, et cetera, et cetera. It's a nice problem to have, but just looking at that Minnesota lineup, would their money have not been better served on, say, a center back, for example, or maybe another fullback, or and then now none of their
no one
numbers.
likes buying center backs, though, Alex. Right?
They should.
It's not sexy.
Who cares about sexy? All you care about 3 points. Then you end up with this drab lineup like this, where you don't even end up playing any of your strikers because for some reason one isn't playing and the other one's stuck in quarantine. I mean, Minnesota is a strange team. I really like Minnesota. I've always liked what they do, and I like their colors and just vibe around the club for some reason. But such a strange decision-making process, such a strange bringing in all these guys. I'm curious to see what the final picture like. Do you play this 4-3-1-2 we're seeing today and just plug Abila and Unu in? Because they don't have any wingers anyways, with Kevin Molino gone and Lod was playing out of position anyways. That could end up being a solution. You kind of just drop Lod a bit deeper. You play Reynoso, you drop Abila and Unu in there, and that works. But it's just going to be strange to see where Minnesota's puzzle is going to start coming together, because there's loads of talents, oodles of talent there, especially offensively. And we talk about them being a 3-2, 4-2 team. If everything works out, they can start being a 5-2, 6-2 team. But it's going to be weird to see how you kind of put all the puzzles together. Pieces of the puzzle.
You brought up the fact that they don't have any wingers, and that brings us to the third mystery man, the third blank face who hasn't had a role yet for Minnesota United. Franco Fragipane or Fragipane, I'm not entirely sure. Someone can correct me on that. 28-year-old winger from Argentinian winger. Plenty of experience in the domestic league there, and I would be assuming that what Minnesota was looking at was his 2018-2019 season with CA Union, which was impressive. 7 goals, 3 assists in 24 matches. Other than that, don't really know a lot about this guy, but he seems like, yeah, I love that quote from Alex. That's terrific. But I'm assuming that that's the supposed answer to the Molino problem, the supposed answer to the lack of winger depth and creation. But again, yeah, why did he bring in 2 strikers if you're only going to play 1 striker? Why did he bring in 1 winger? Like, it's the pieces just don't seem to quite add
they
up.
just seem to buy whatever that's put in front of them. Almost like
Does that sound like anyone else at least in past seasons?
Like screams agent buys. Like, ooh, here's a really good guy from Boca Juniors. You should buy him, even though you don't necessarily need him. Is that just me? Am I the only one seeing those vibes?
No, I think that's fair. Let's answer Sebastian's question though. Alex, which lineup has you more flustered, more confused? Minnesota's or Vancouver's?
If we're going to use a quote I brought up last week, I'm seeing that movable object meets stoppable force here. Like, I feel like it's a coin flip for me, because if you're the Whitecaps, making one change when your guys are running on fumes already and just struggling to score goals, it's like the complete opposite of the pendulum. It's okay, we got struggles. We're gonna work our way through it. Then on Minnesota's side, it's like, we got struggles. We're gonna throw everything in the mixer and mix it out. And I think the right choice for either team might have been, maybe if anything, in both cases, like you said, Minnesota's bad luck, as we say it, could be that bad luck. Maybe they're the team that could be working through things, and the Whitecaps, they've got issues they need to sort out. They need some changes. But then we look at the standings. The Whitecaps have 7 points. The Minnesota has 0. And how are you going to tell a coach like Mark DeSantos, throw it all in the mixer? You haven't been good enough. Well, he has 7 points, so clearly he's been doing something right. I think that's just more us being glutton for changes, and I think we're justified in believing, okay, there needs to be changes in certain areas of their game. But again, a guy like Mark DeSantis is already notably stern with his lineup selection. He really likes to run with a core group of guys. That's what he was known for in USL and NASL. In those days, was just running with a core group of guys. Okay, it makes sense that he doesn't want to. But then on the other hand, maybe Adrian Heath could have gone a less maybe experimental, let's say. Again, using a 4-3-1-2 with only midfielders is a very bold choice, but I'm going to go Minnesota. I'm going to go Minnesota's for the lineup to ultimately answer that question. It just seems so puzzling given their problems.
I think maybe just because I know less about Minnesota than the Whitecaps, I'm going to say I'm more surprised by Minnesota, because as much as I'm maybe a bit disappointed by what I've seen from the Vancouver lineup, I can't say I'm terribly surprised. I was hopeful for Derek Cornelius and Leo Owusu, but beyond that, I'm really not shocked in any way.
Well, at this point, that's it. It's not necessarily surprising at a certain point. It's not like, oh, wow, we weren't expecting this one. It was more like blind optimism, being like Derek Cornelius and Ryan Raposo are going to play, Theo Baer's going to play. And then you just, in reality, that it's like I'm mixing up memes right now here. It's like one of those memes where you're just like, they're sleeping blissfully thinking of, Derek Cornelius, Ryan Raposo. And it's like that scary guy behind you, which is Russell Tiber playing at left midfield once again. It's kind of one of those vibes where it's coming, but you just want to pretend you live in a world where it's not going to come up. Yeah,
but it's like Russell Tiber is easily able to evade any possibility that he'll ever exit the lineup. He's Teflon, right? You can't pin him down. You can't get rid of him. But there's some things in life that are inevitable, and Russell Tiber on the left-hand side this season seems to be one of them. But do we want to talk
I was going to say, I'm going to hop on that. It's good that you mentioned the left midfield position, because one of the potential replacements for Russell Tiber at left mid, Ali Adnan, at least there sounds like there is a bit of progress in his situation, because as seen here, he put a little of a leak on Instagram, like, oh, thank you so much to the training staff for training me. One might wonder, is he going to go to the U.S.? Is he going to join the Whitecaps? Unfortunately, not right away. But the good news is he's going to go join Iraq. They play some friendlies at the end of May. They also play World Cup qualifiers in June. Sounds like he could play up to 4, 5, 6 games with Iraq then. Obviously, it would be nice to have him in the Whitecaps lineup today at left mid, say, if the Whitecaps are playing a 4-4-2. And ahead of him and Christian Gutierrez on the left-hand side. But at least he's not just running around killing his fitness. I mean, obviously he's training. He's not sitting there wasting away, but match fitness is a whole different beast. At least he's going to be playing games. Hopefully the Whitecaps tell Iraq, let the reins off, let him play, let him go, and hopefully he gets a good run of minutes for Iraq, because they got some big games going on. So just thought it would be important to mention Ali Adnan's career update that came out today.
Yeah, this is a great thing for Ali, because at least he gets to play competitive matches, and obviously the visa situation's been nothing short of incredibly frustrating. And so if that seems like the reasonable move, you've only got, shockingly, this is match 5 already, and you've only got 7 matches in this first span before the international break. So, Ali's time, like by the time even if his visa was cleared today, by the time he got up to fitness, was integrated into the squad, quarantined, actually played what he possibly get 1 match. At this point, it just makes sense for him to get as much competitive playing time as possible and hopefully hit the ground running after that international break. So obviously this is not an ideal situation, but at this point it feels like they're making lemonade out of lemons, right?
Yeah, well, it's certainly they're not taking their lemons and throwing it at the wall, so to speak. At least they're making something out of it. We'll see if it's lemonade yet, but it's definitely not. They're not wasting the lemons. But and then again, that's a good point though, brought up by Bo over B&G Media. That does put a lot of pressure on Christian Gutierrez now, because there's always kind of the hope of, okay, Ali could be a week or 2 away, so you got to keep competitive for your spot. Obviously, Gutierrez is going to keep pushing. He's not the kind of guy to get complacent necessarily. He hasn't struck me as that kind of guy. But it's certainly, is he going to be playing every game now, especially in a week like this? Sam, for you personally, what do you think is the option?
I have two what I feel like are very good answers. Number one, Eric Godoy when healthy.
At left back. You don't think footedness might be a problem in that?
I'm not worried about it. Or you can always swap as well. I think that Bruno, you can see what the chemistry is like, but we've seen Godoy's ability to play at the fullback position. But the one I really like is 3 at the back. Just go to 3 at the back and then play flexible with the midfielders, or someone like Dahomey back there. Someone like, just get creative with it. I don't Yeah, I know Eric Godoy actually playing. It's
Very bold of you.
That would be quite a sight. But yeah, I don't know unless there's immense faith in Javain Brown. I don't know. I mean, I guess Derek Cornelius as well is a possible shout, but I don't. It's very interesting. The Whitecaps have gone from too much left back depth to not enough very quickly.
Hear me out. Shout out to Spice Boy because he actually read my mind. Russell Tybert at left back.
Tell me that would finding ways to keep him in the lineup.
You know what? If again, the thing is with Russell Tybert, just don't put him in a position where he has to progress the ball. I mean, to be fair, at left back he does have to progress the ball, but I do feel like that could be a role for him. If not, Jake Nerwinski has shown some decent weak-footed proficiency.
That's a good one.
Jake Nerwinski could be an option at left back to kind of in an emergency pinch, if not Russell Tybert. Again, this isn't a solution where you're going to win MLS Cup playing Russell Tybert 34 games at left back. I just think 1 or 2 games in a pinch, let's be honest, the formation the Whitecaps are playing anyways, he's pretty much playing left back already. So I actually wouldn't be opposed to the Russell Tybert being an emergency left back. Because I'm just looking. I mean, I don't know. I'm picky. I like the idea of guys on their strong foots.
Yeah, you're very committed to the footedness.
It's just because I've seen guys like Ranko Veselinovic. As soon as he's out of position, it just doesn't work. And I mean, there's guys.
I don't know if being out of position is the real problem. To be honest,
well, it's just it's hard to think of guys who could play that role because. Honestly, I'm all for going creative. I'd be if in a pinch, I could see a guy like Leonard Owusu playing.
I forgot. I totally forgot.
Or Janiel Bikel. We forgot about him.
Janiel Bikel. That's who I was thinking of.
Because thinking Janiel Bikel is a shout. Heck, I'd be open to trying a Leonard Owusu at fullback. Heck, Michael Baldissimo. I feel like you could try some pretty interesting.
He kind of plays that role at least in build-up sometimes.
He's two-footed. He can progress the ball. He's a good defender. Not the worst idea in the world.
That's the one though. Mark DeSantos in 1v1 scenarios in transition doesn't seem to really have a ton of trust in Baldissimo yet. He's heaped a ton of praise on him for his passing, his build-up play. I think we both think that Baldy's a good defender, but I'm not sure if Mark DeSantos feels the same way. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wouldn't pick, amongst others, why I wouldn't pick him for that position.
I mean, how about this? Now that we're here, Sam, let's have some fun with this. What are some outrageous position swaps on the Whitecaps that you could actually see working?
There's one very, very obvious one.
Oh, let's see this.
I'm wondering what you're thinking. Yeah. I want to see if you can include.
Well, go for it. I'll think of some while we're at it.
Derek Cornelius at striker.
Well, that's almost too easy. That'd be fun.
If you're looking for a bit of a target man striker, he's got the heading ability in the bag. If you're going to be set piece merchants, if you're going to be, low XG chance shot merchants, if you're going to play Brexit 4-4-2, then hey, if David Egbo's not ready or if Lucas Cavallini's out of the lineup, how about Theo Bair and Derek Cornelius up front in a 4-4-2?
Well, I've had a few outlandish thoughts in my spare time, so I'll just go through some of them. I'm curious to see what some of the comments have to say. I mean, hear me out here. Theo Bair at center back, just the 6'4" with speed. Imagine if he was able to defend. That would be quite a scary position swap. If not, Christian Gutierrez as a number 6. I don't know why. I feel like that could be kind of an interesting one where he kind of plays inside a little more and is kind of destroying guys, progressing through the middle. So I think that could be a fun one. Obviously, Ali Adnan really just anywhere on the pitch. Honestly, Ali Adnan as a false 9. I'd want to see something as outlandish as Ali Adnan just playing kind of in a free role in the final third where he just kind of wanders around and pops up in half spaces. I mean, there's a few more that I'm trying to think of one. Andy Rose at striker. Honestly, I feel like with his heading ability, I feel like he could be a lethal target man. Just having guys play off of Andy Rose, kind of, shadowing him. If not, a few other ones like Dahome or Caicedo at fullback. We already kind of saw it. I feel like that could be kind of an interesting one, them playing as a false fullback. Heck, while we're at it, Gutierrez at center back could also be a very interesting prop. I'm here for a few outlandish ideas like that. Imagine just being thrown to the wind like that. That'd be pretty fun, wouldn't it?
I wonder if Max Crepeau could play
Oh, he
any
could play as a six.
outfield position. That's what I was thinking about.
He could play a number with the ball at his feet. He could play the Michael Baldissimo role, I think, if he's like, I don't know defensively how Max Crepeau is at tackling guys, but I've seen this guy play a 50-yard ping at training. I think he has a bit of a ping on him, so to speak. But that's what perfect transition there into a talking point now, because there was a lot of that we're talking about Max Crepeau. 5 months ago, or say not even 5 months ago, 2 months ago, Canada were playing in Florida for the World Cup qualifiers. Dane Sinclair, who is playing today, he wasn't playing today, but he's, on Minnesota, obviously. Maxime Crepeau is playing today. There was debate. Some people thought Dane Sinclair should be Canada's number 2 in those games he should have played versus Cayman Islands. Others thought it was Max Crepeau. Heading into this game, I think Max Crepeau has regained his throne. But Sam, I'm kind of curious to let's bring up this debate. If you're John Herdman, let's project down the line a bit. Gold Cup 2021, who do you have in net if you have to pick between the two?
Well, I think it's all kind of about, the only reason this is a debate is because of what Dane St. Clair was able to do at the end of last year. And you look at that stretch for him, 13 matches, only 13 goals allowed. In terms of post-shot expected goals, which is kind of a relatively good evaluation of whether keepers are, saving shots beyond what's expected. He was plus 2.2 in that category over those 13 matches, which is a pretty high rate to pump out that kind of positive metric. And, conceded 10 goals already this year, and he's already minus 1.8 in that post-shot expected goals this season. So very much, the tale of two cities performances wise. And I think Dane St. Clair has a lot of potential, and you have to love the idea of Max Crepeau and St. Clair as your 1-2 punch going forwards. But I think it was just a case of Max being out injured and St. Clair having a great Hasal-esque run. But I don't really think now that, order has been restored somewhat, it's no longer really a debate. Max Crepeau is the number 2 until proven otherwise. And if St. Clair goes on a great run and can show some consistency like Max showed for a full season in 2019, maybe there's a debate to be had. But I think that was just everything that happened at the end of last year was such kind of the combo of what had happened to Max, and then just a historically great run combined also with playoff success. I think the fact that Minnesota had playoff success, and you see a keeper on a team that's making some waves, I think that just makes you look at him in a greater light. So all those forces kind of conspired, but at the end of the day, I think the choice is relatively simple for me, at least.
Yeah, no, I personally I've had Crepeau ahead for a while. I don't think it was hard to necessarily change my opinions. I think for me, the argument with St. Clair was versus guys like Hasal and guys like Pantemis last year, who were excellent as U23s, kind of thinking of, the Canadian team this year, say the U23 team. I personally had St. Clair, yes, ahead of guys like Hasal and Pantemis. He was that good, but I don't know. It was just too hard to forget how good Crepeau was. And it really shows how, short-term memories can really be at times in this sport, forgetting what guys like Crepeau have done in the past. So I always thought the discussion was a bit premature. I feel like now I think it's Crepeau's job to lose. It's hard for me to imagine he's just holding on the fort so nicely. But if you're Canada, you have to be happy, really. Just looking around the league, first of all, MLS, you got Max Crepeau, Dane St. Clair, James Pantemis getting a start so far. It sounds like he's kept a clean sheet to date so far in his first start of the year. Thomas Hasal obviously still kicking around. You go to the CPL, there's like 6, 7, 8 good young Canadian keepers. You got Milan Borjan, who's still good. He's, we're not going to forget Milan Borjan. And it's a long cry from the days where Canada's 3 goalkeepers would always seem to be Milan Borjan, and then guys like Simon Thomas and Jason Luttweiler, who, shout out to them. They're good goalies, but a guy like Luttweiler, he plays 3 games a year in the championship because he's a backup 3rd-string goalie. Simon Thomas plays in the 2nd Norwegian division. He's not really playing, whereas now there's 6, 7, 8, 9 dudes all playing. It's just mind-boggling that in 2-3 years, Canada's gone from having like no goalkeepers playing to so many. And I think it's credit to all these guys at the position, but I just think right now it's it's Boyan and Crepeau like here and here, and then it's kind of this glut of guys fighting for the 3 spot. And I think St. Clair's still safe in that 3 spot. I think he should still be called up in June for that 3 spot, but he should know that, okay, if he slips and a guy like Pantemis takes over Diop and Golden State goes on a run, he could quickly be in there for him, because I just think from what we've seen from Crepeau, he's taken a step forward in my books.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of James Pantemi, so I'd love to see that be a battle for the number 3 spot. And if Diop does struggle, that would be exciting for him to get some running in Montreal. Well, before we wrap up here, we got to bring in producer Ben. We got to hear what he has to think about this lineup, about the match.
The position debate. I want to hear some of his wacky position ideas too. So let's wrap up the show now that we got 5 minutes left here on the third sub pregame show presented by Macey Sports.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here with you guys. It's been a good show so far. Apologies for a few of the little technical difficulties at the beginning, but yeah, playing Whitecaps in different positions. I want to see Russell Tybert in net at some point before his Whitecaps tenure comes to an end, because if he does that, then he'll effectively have played all 11 positions on the field at some point during his what could be, I guess, almost 20 years with the Whitecaps if he stays with them all the way to the end of his professional career. So, I mean, that would be amazing. I wouldn't want to see the Whitecaps get in a situation where that has to happen. I mean, it almost happened last year when Hassall was playing a bunch of games and sort of your only guy on the bench was Isaac Boehmer. It's not realistic. I think more realistic is probably one of the ones that you guys brought up, like Theo Bair at center back, or of course, Derek Cornelius at the striker position. We've seen Whitecap center back at striker before. I don't know how many people remember, but Kendall Waston making his debut against the LA Galaxy as a striker in the last 10 minutes of a game. And of course, he went on to be one of the best Whitecaps center backs in club history. So I could see Derek Cornelius coming up and being a striker. He scored a beautiful goal against Kansas City a couple seasons ago. So maybe if the Whitecaps need a goal from open play, maybe you can send in a bunch of crosses to a tall guy like Cornelius in the middle and hope for something. I'm not totally confident in his finishing ability or his heading, but in terms of just being a tall guy at the front of the field, he could offer some benefits to the Whitecaps if they get really sort of desperate and are only playing long balls and crosses.
Hear me out here, guys. Lucas Cavallini at fullback.
I might have to remove you from the show out.
Yeah, no. Short answer.
His work rate, getting stuck in. Come on, hear me out.
The thing is, the way Cavallini plays, really the lack of passing, the lack of just like general build up, hold up, dribbling, anything like that, really limits him from playing most positions on the pitch. Honestly, I like the idea of him at center back more than I do at fullback.
I feel like your center backs almost have to be better at passing, though. No.
I think if you have Cavallini in a defensive position, you're just asking for a red card at some point. I don't think the guy really knows how to make a tackle all that well. Sure, he can press, sure, he can intercept and sort of get the ball off defenders who might be sleeping. But in terms of him controlling the ball or let alone making a tackle, I think you're looking at a pretty instant red card for Lucas Cavallini. I
think Cava would be a great center back in like the 4th or 5th division of England in the mid-90s. is the kind of center back I'm
glowing review of him there. Glowing review of a $6 million player.
Transitioning from the Cavallini at center back talk. Ben, seeing the lineups, hearing what you've heard this week, how are you feeling about this match? Who's going to come out on top?
This just seems destined for a 0-0 draw at this point. I mean, the Whitecaps, they can't seem to get anything from open play. And Minnesota, they're going with a total defensive, I don't even know what you call their lineup. It's just park the bus right from the first minute. So the Whitecaps can't score. Minnesota's not going to concede. That seems like a 0-0 draw to me at the end of the day. And so that's how I think this game is going to come out.
And so, Alex, you correct me if I'm wrong. You picked a 1-1, right?
I went for a draw. You are correct. I somehow saw a draw in this too. I feel kind of vindicated.
I'm liking that prediction. I'm feeling far less confident about my 3-1 Minnesota just based on that lineup. I was really expecting Minnesota to come out and try to claim all 3 points as aggressively as possible. And we've gotten the opposite of that in terms of lineup, at least. Now we're going to see very shortly here, maybe the way Minnesota plays on the pitch reflects something different, but it doesn't feel like it. And I'm backing, or I'm liking how the 1-1 0-0 is feeling right now far more than the 3-1.
I almost.
I mean, I have the advantage of making my predictions after the lineups come out. I come on at the end of this. You guys do your podcast earlier in the week and make your predictions. So I'm feeling pretty good about my options. But one of the players I think the Whitecaps could use, almost jokingly tonight, is Octavio Rivero. And he, weirdly, you talked about agent signings, and he's playing with Matias Lava at Union La Calera in the Chilean First Division. They're 6th in the First Division right now. It's interesting that they're still playing together. I mean, there's a whole bunch of Whitecaps still playing together. We all know about the base and the avid soccer stuff that went on with the Whitecaps a little while ago when Robinson was at the helm. But they played in the Copa Libertadores yesterday. They tied 2-2 with Flamengo. Laba played just over an hour, and Rivero didn't make the 18. But certainly interesting to sort of check in on these old Whitecaps every once in a while.
That's an amazing throwback. Just the fact that you found that good old Octavio Rivero and Matias Laba are playing together. I mean, typical Rivero. What is it? 3 goals in his first 5 games. Can't wait for the 14-game goal drought in the middle of the summer. That is as customary of Rivero. But on a serious note, good to see those guys continuing to play and do well. I just wonder what a Matias Laba could have done. I mean, in a sense, the Whitecaps finally, after a few years of darkness, upgraded with Daniel Bikel, who kind of does a lot of the same Laba dirty work, but can actually pass the ball more than 15 feet, which is nice to have in his locker. But Laba was always a fierce competitor. He led the MLS in tackles 4 years in a row at his peak. He was an animal. So the Whitecaps missed him for a while there. He was certainly a kind of player who was hard to replace.
And I don't know why, but Octavio Rivero was just always one of my favorite Whitecaps players to watch, because there was always something, even when he was on his goal scoring droughts, there was always something going on. Yeah, a little bit of the agony or the struggles, the missed chances. It kept me entertained, even if it wasn't maybe the dream striker signing that Whitecaps fans were looking for. So good to see him doing Octavio Rivero things in Chile.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess on that note, that wraps up today's edition of the Third Sub live show presented by Macey Sports, unless you guys have any other objections. But before we do, just shout out to the partners of the show, obviously Macey Sports. Big giveaway coming this weekend. Can't exactly say what it is, but I'm sure it'll be useful for some of the stuff that's coming around the corner with soccer coming back, the sun coming out. Listen, that's all I'll say about that. But on that note, shout out to producer Ben, killing it with all the graphics, the phenomenal video this week. Make sure you watch that at the end, of course. And then, shout out to Sam for joining us as always. You can find me on Twitter, Alex Gungaruzik at BTS Fan City. But on that note, it was a blast as always. I'll let you guys wrap up today's fifth edition of the Third Sub live show.
Yeah, always fun to do these. Samuel_rowboat on Twitter. 86forever.com is where you can find me. And shout out to Ben, because the work on the graphics and the videos is immaculate. So hope everyone enjoys as much as we do.
It's always a pleasure to produce these shows and to come out with you guys at the end. So I hope you guys not only enjoy the intro and end videos and all the graphics, but more importantly, I do hope that our viewers enjoy that as well. That's all for this week here on the Third Sub podcast preview show. Enjoy the match.
What's up, bro?
There's not a rule that you have to use the 3 subs.
He's the best left back in Canada.
Today's gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now you should have somehow realized what you gotta do. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but you never really had a doubt. I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you now. And all the roads we have to walk are winding, and all the lights that lead us there are blinding. There are many things that I would like to say to you, but I don't know how.